Hey, what's up guys? Books Nelson here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about this New York Times article recently released that criticizes 2K and EA for microtransactions, although they do put a decent amount of focus on 2K. So before we get into this, first and foremost, shout out to Alan who asked me about this. I knew this article was created. I figured it was just, microtransactions are bad. Keep it moving. But while that's true, there are a few things in the article I wanted to address. So first and foremost, this is written by Caleb Marsh. Shout out to him. Now, my former partner on the Amy Bro show, Brian Mazik, used to write for Forbes. So I understand somewhat the system of how these articles get created and why they're created and all of that stuff. Long story short, this article is written for the masses, and so it cannot be good. Right? When I say it cannot be good, this is an article. This is not an expose. This is not an essay, right? This is not like Time Magazine, 6 pages dedicated or something like that. This is just an article. He's just saying this is something that's happening. Unfortunately, that does not tell the actual story of what's happening with 2K. And we're going to get into some of that as we discuss this, right? So going right off the top, 80% of Take-Two's revenue comes from microtransactions. Now, this does include both 2K and Grand Theft Auto. The important thing to understand about that is this number is very hard to decipher for us because Grand Theft Auto is such a big game. So we can't automatically say that 80% of NBA 2K's revenue comes from microtransactions because they included both. And GTA is the biggest game in like all of gaming ever. So since GTA is so big, GTA 5 is so big, that mixing in, I don't want us to run around being like, it's 80% of the, we don't know exactly how much that means for 2K. The number might be very different specifically for 2K, although I'm sure the number is still very, very large. I bring this up, so we're gonna talk about our first point, right? The first point being, I do believe that when that number crosses a certain threshold for 2K, it will go free to play. Here's why. So let's just say they have 10 million users, right? All of those users have to pay $70. And 80% of those users' money comes from microtransactions. That means that 30% is what you would be sacrificing for this. More users, right? Every free-to-play game has more players than it would have if it was pay-to-play, because I mean that's just the way things work, right? And this invites all kinds of people to play the game. So when they know, and here's the specific number, when they know that the number of people projected to get the game free-to-play brings in more money than that 30% they're losing, right? Then it will go free to play. So that's the first point that I wanted to bring up as far as this article goes. So I do believe that free to play is a possible, future for NBA 2K. So that's point number one. So point number two, he says and I'm not gonna scroll down. I have it highlighted on a separate thing. I'll just scroll down. You guys can read it on screen as it's there. But basically, he says the exhortations to spend can feel like being in a casino. Upon starting 2K24, players are overwhelmed by, all of the stuff we know that's in there. And rather than revealing the contents, the packs explode, scatter, give you animations, blah, blah. And he talks about, he says the chance of you of getting some of the cards are astronomical. Says they allow you to not spend money just to say that they can, but it's completely unavoidable. That's Jordan Midler. That's a quote from Jordan Midler, a critic for Video Games Chronicle. Okay, with all due respect, that's actually not true. And this is one of the things where you can't talk about 2K, my team specifically, because it's funny because microtransactions are a major part of the park, right? But they're only focusing on my team. So again, we're going to elevate the conversation here, right? We have to be accurate. We're not going to take the buzzwords and the things that make us feel good and go and run with it. Not on this channel, right? We're going to, where it's right, it's right, where it's wrong, and we're going to try and be as accurate as we possibly can. Specific to my team, you cannot sum up my team without getting into the details of the difference between what I consider the three phases of my team. There was the player market phase, where you could lock in for everybody. There was the all gambling phase, where everyone had to gamble for cards. And now we are in the pay to win phase, right? That's the last phase. So this is important because in the beginning, you could theoretically say it was pay to win, but all of the cards in the game were attainable if you played the game enough. I had them. I didn't put any money into my team, and I had Kobe and Wemby and all of that stuff, right? Just from messing around when I wasn't playing Rec and all of that stuff. So you know, that was an attainable goal. Back in the beginning, the game was extraordinarily fair for an ultimate team style mode. Then it went to the gambling mode. Here's the thing about the gambling part, the gambling era, and we know what era that is. That's All-Star Game up until they started releasing packs for 200K where you could just pull. And if you wanted to spend $1 million on the game, you theoretically could get everybody because the odds were high enough. The thing about the gambling era, it was not pay to win. And I said this when it happened. And Troy Dan is proof of that, because Troy Dan pulled, and he's still the only 100 overall he got that entire time, or at least for the longest time, I think was Michael Jordan, the worst one, by the way. And I said, even at that time, the Galaxy Opals were a massive step up from the Pink Diamonds. So not getting the Opals you wanted was an issue, and pulling the Opals did level up your team much more. So for a short time in the beginning, it was somewhat pay to win, because even with the low odds, with the fact that you were going to get the lock-in and the fact that you would, you pull some of those Opals, that moved you forward. But after a few weeks, when all of the no money spent or pro money spent or low money spent people would lock in all of these sets, then it became about somewhat luck, because if those people who locked in their sets got the best cards from the lock-in, and the people who were pulling packs didn't get the best cards from pulling and didn't hit jackpot on the lock-in, you started to see the teams even back out over after maybe a month. So I would say that in the gambling era, it was pay to win for maybe 3 weeks or so. But after that third, fourth week, then it got to a scenario where it started to even out. And then once the free content started to have elite cards in it, I think for the bulk of the gambling era, I wouldn't call it pay to win, because paying did not guarantee you a competitive advantage. And in fact, I think the cards that were good, and I'm so glad we get to say this now after the fact, the cards that were good, if you got the best cards, that was purely luck. So just because you got an Opal didn't necessarily mean that your team got that much better. Whereas if you got, say, Ron Artest, who's a card who can literally play to this very day, and the card is ancient now, that was a massive competitive advantage at the time that he came out. But Glenn Rice came out relatively shortly after that, and that was a free card, right? And he was better than Ron Artest. So, and Glenn Rice is still arguably the best shooting guard in the game. So I say all this to say, the whole pay to win concept, it's not that simple, because there's free cards in the game. There were virtually unattainable cards in the game. And some of the cards that had the lowest odds weren't the best cards in the game. Case in point with the Michael Jordan, and say even like the Dirk Nowitzki and stuff like that. Those were not necessarily the best cards in the game at the time. So I don't think it's accurate. We can say that the gambling content was wrong. We can say that we hate the model, and I very much do. I have hours of video content dedicated to criticizing them. I even gave them a cartoon lizard to express my disdain for this practice. But just because we dislike these practices doesn't mean we have to paint them in an inaccurate light. I do not think that for the majority of 2K24, it was pay to win. I think it was gamble with the hope of getting the players you wanted, but ultimately everyone could be a loser and anyone could be a winner, which is the nature of gambling. And trust me, I literally have watched pack openings where the person spent hundreds of dollars and I only opened 6 packs with MT, and I got so lucky that I literally came out with more good cards that week than content creators. And this is before I had a channel at the time. It's pure luck when the odds are that low. Now, when the odds get much higher, then it becomes pay to win. See, that's the funny thing. For it to be pay to win, the odds actually have to be higher. Because if the odds go below 1%, there's a chance that you can spend a ton of money on the game and not get anybody that helps your team. That's what we've been criticizing, right? When the odds go higher, it's, well, if you want to spend nothing, you're missing out on this great chance to improve your team. But if you spend something, you're not encouraged to spend everything, right? And this all works in layers. So I wanted to address that point before moving forward. All right, what other points were good? So they go, so this is from EA, right? Because 2K declined to comment in the article. So this is from Electronic Arts. Kerry Hopkins, Senior Vice President for Global Affairs. Because this guy, I think, is in Berlin, the article writer. He's so I don't know if he's American or if he's just over there. But anyway, the quote, "We no longer ship discs and walk away from them when they're done. The expectation for most of our games is to keep delivering live and dynamic content and to continually evolve and deliver even more value for our players." And then the next part, this is from the article writer, "With so much money at stake," actually, let me drag this over so you guys can read it. "With so much money at stake, companies often prioritize the parts of their games that use microtransactions. That incentive is a significant shift from sports games of the late 1990s, early 2000s, blah, 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 when gameplay was supposedly better." All right. Now, I think this is all a big mishmash of, it's not nonsense, but again, we have to be detailed. So not only has my team gone through shifts, my team is a mode that has been around for a long time and gone through many iterations. So you cannot write an article like this for the masses without addressing the depth of the changes that have happened. So this summation where this guy from Electronic Arts is talking about many, many, many games does not specifically speak to NBA 2K. In fact, I think NBA 2K is a very strange case. Because if you go into, say, My League, I think you can have a fantastic experience. You go in with the right sliders and the right roster, and you can have a blast and get the game to play its best, right? If you were to like, now I personally don't like the default gameplay of the game just because I feel like too many of the jump shots feel bad. But with a few modifications, you could give me the greatest basketball experience I have ever had with my NBA. And I know many people are going through that, right? And even though I personally don't like how slow some of the stuff, I feel like for instance, I feel like all point guards should have at least bronze, quick first step or speed booster or whatever, right? Stuff like that. I think, most guards should at least have their shot on quick. I think some of the guards having their shot on like very slow. It just makes the game feel clunky. Even if it's theoretically accurate to real life, it makes the game feel clunky. But it is more balanced because when everybody doesn't have 99.3, when everybody doesn't have 99 speed, you have to play mismatches, which makes the game more strategic in a certain way, and it makes the great players more powerful. So I say all that to say, the non-microtransaction part of 2K is arguably the best part, right? Like, I think the best version of 2K is head-to-head competition with custom created My NBA teams or custom draft teams. I think on a custom roster, that would be the elite best version of the game. And that's non-microtransaction oriented. So then we look at the microtransaction oriented version of My Career. Well, you could say that it's true that they've taken all of the resources out of the actual My Career mode because it's sorry. Like the literal My Career, not Park and all that stuff, but the actual story, it's sorry. It's a disgrace. It's really bad. If you're listening to this video, bad job. Bad job. do better next year. That's horrible, right? There's nothing to do. The only reason people liked it is because they weren't saddled with like a terrible story, so they could just get through the mode. But when you talk about the gameplay and the actual reward of playing that mode and the feeling of wanting to win a championship, it is not anywhere near other games or older 2K games where I really felt like I wanted to win the championship before I hopped online. I have no feeling like that. I just want to get out of that mode. I'm mashing through the intros. As the moment my character is ready to play online, I'm never trying to play my career again. I've had characters that were like 98 overall purple plates and did not do more than 3 games in the NBA in my career this year. And I'm a my career head. I love my career. So that's not a microtransaction oriented mode, and we have seen the resources go away from it. But when we talk about the gameplay of Park and Rec and stuff like that, I feel like the gameplay is better than it's ever been, to be honest with you. Especially in the Rec. I think Park was still a little more fun in 19 and 20, but I think it's good though. I think it's closer to 19 and 20 than people think it is. I think people just still haven't mastered the dribbling system. I say all this to say, I don't think 2K intentionally puts the focus on the microtransaction modes when it comes to gameplay. I think the gameplay of the game is just according to the philosophy of the developers and how good they are at the time, right? So for instance, the gameplay in my team is the worst out of the whole game. That is the worst gameplay, right? Like that's part of the reason my team players are so angry, is because you guys are playing the worst game mode when it comes to gameplay. And why is the gameplay bad in my team? It's because the developers don't balance the mode at all. And so they've actually done the opposite of what this article says, where instead of making the gameplay of the microtransaction modes and making it, I mean, even with features and stuff like that, all they did was optimize my team to get you to spend. They did not show any effort at all whatsoever, in my opinion, towards making that mode a great mode to play. I think for the entirety of the year, my team has been the worst mode in the game in terms of features and gameplay. They put all of their resources into making you spend money on packs. And every change they've made has been either to get you to spend more money on packs or more time grinding so that the people who were spending money on packs would have somebody to play against. I don't think they put any time, effort, or resources into making my team better as a game mode. They did not give us any features. We did not get good spotlights. All of the stuff that we got that was good for offline play or for, interactive ways to grind cards, all of that was early in the year. And as the year went on, all of their resources went to optimizing the spending of the mode. So with 2K, I don't think the microtransaction to quality equation, I don't think it has any rhyme or reason the way this little blurb in the article says. But again, the blurb in the article is talking about, it's all encompassing. It's an EA guy talking about a whole bunch of EA games specific to 2K. I think 2K is its own individual organism that has to be analyzed according to its own behavior, not associated with, Red Dead Redemption or GTA or any of the EA games or any of that stuff. And I think it needs to be criticized according to its own metric. My criticism for my team would be, just to be very clear, would be that they don't balance the game for the cards that are in the game. They don't have a way they don't balance the game. So I'll say this real quick, because I do want to make a gameplay oriented video. Long story short, when you have bots in the game and you make the defense overpowered, the game is going to play very, very differently than other game modes. And so if you have the same AI in my team that you have in Play Now and in the Rec Center, there's no way my team can be good and those other modes be good. One of them has to suffer, because if 99 overall Wemby plays defense the same way, with the same effectiveness as an 85 overall Rec, like if they have the same brain, then Wemby is going to be infinitely better, right? But if Wemby gets dumbed down, again, if they have the same brain and you make Wemby fair, then when people play against somebody, a bot in the rec, that bot is going to get destroyed by the human being. So if you go in with a bot, or if somebody gets kicked out of your game, that bot is going to get abused because he has the same brain that makes Wemby fair. I hope that's clear. But so since my team does not appear to have its own well-tuned specific sliders, the gameplay is worse, and that would be my number one criticism. And my number two criticism would be, this game mode is making you so much money. Where are the actual features, right? In rec, we have in my career, we have theater. In rec, we have events. You in park, you've got all kinds of events going on all the time. There are no events in my team, and I'll leave it at that because we'll talk about gameplay in another video. So yeah, so that part of this article I do not think directly relates to 2K. What else did I want to highlight? Okay, so there's this one part where this psychologist comes in. Let's see. Here we go. So to encourage players to spend more money, EA and 2K have made the experience of virtually opening packs as appealing as possible. Tiny dopamine rush, blah, blah, blah. Jamie Madigan, a psychologist who specializes in video games, said these systems operated on the same principle of random rewards as slot machines. Okay, and last thing she says is there's been research to show the exciting part. Okay, this is the part I want to highlight. The exciting part isn't finding out what's in the box, but before you open the box, seeing the little effects pop up, hearing the sounds, watching the opening animations. So there's a couple of things I want to highlight here. Number one, when they say, so it's almost like I wish I could put this, I mean, I can literally, but in all caps, when they say things like there's been research, when they say things like psychologist who specializes in video games, when they say things like the same principle of random rewards as slot machines, let's address that first. When they say same principle, they're not just saying, oh, slot machines work this way. No. Casinos have spent probably billions of dollars getting people to pull slot machines. They have optimized this over decades, right? And so when this system gets transferred by people like psychologists, and I told you guys about this several videos ago, I believe they have psychologists over at 2K optimizing this. The same way they have sports psychologists for the 2K League, they have anti-consumer psychologists at 2K, right? Sitting up there with the Lizzid People, shivering in their chair with a shadowy light on top of them, extracting your resources. How can we get more money from them? We can't do this, sir. It's evil. I don't want to hear your excuses, right? Like a cartoon. Like literally, that kind of thing is going. Obviously, that's not literally happening, but I do think that dynamic exists where they are optimizing this decades-old system and weaponizing it against you. So a lot of times when people say, oh, you're part of the problem and blah, 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 I don't look at it that way. I always look at the evil corporation, and this part of 2K is evil. Obviously, all of the human beings who work for 2K are not evil, clearly. Some of them are just devs who love basketball and want to make a good game, right? Yeah, some of them just want to make good art. Some of them just want to tell good stories, obviously. Chris, love Chris, LD2K, he's awesome. Czar, I've been friends with Czar forever and will hopefully be friends with Czar for the rest of my life. So, you know, and I know several other devs on the team and former devs of the team and stuff like that. No, everybody who works at the company isn't evil, but the higher ups have evil practices, right? And so since their practices are predatory, that makes them predators. And so I'm allowed to call them lizards. That's how this works. You're going to gouge people. I'm going to call you names. I don't make the rules. Actually, yes, I do, and those are the rules, right? So when we talk about these decades-old systems that they are refining and transferring over to video games, they are specifically made to take your innocent, childlike instinct of LeBron James is my favorite player. I want to play with LeBron James. And they're trying to weaponize that into you spending your last dollar on your paycheck on the game, right? So the whole you're part of the problem thing, when I see people, this is like, you know, in Russia when they had the bread lines and people like paying too much for bread and be like, you're part of the problem. You shouldn't be selling for these prices. No, the government is the problem. the people with all of the money are the problem, not the people who are forced to make the best of a bad situation that they can't control. And theoretically, could people just take their love of basketball and love of sports gaming and love of their favorite players and decide, I'm taking my ball and going home and I'm not playing the game? Sure. Yes, technically that's true. But that doesn't make them evil. That doesn't make them part of the problem. It's the people who are literally going through all of this stuff to victimize you, to manipulate you, that has worked over almost 100 years. You know what I'm saying? Like slot machines, I don't know how long slot machines have been out, but it's been many, many decades, right? You think you coming into a video game, not knowing that you have an opponent on the other end, you think it's not going to work on you? Like, you think people are trained to combat this years of psychology, years of manipulation, years of getting people to like extracting that dopamine and using people's chemicals against them? No, people just want to play a basketball game. They just want to have a good time. And I'm not going to dump on those people or even content creators who are like making money because they trying to give their audience a good time. No, they're not the problem. The problem is always these people. These are the problem. And again, I don't mean Jamie Madigan, who's doing this interview. I mean the psychologists that 2K hires to weaponize her field, right? So there's been research to show the exciting part isn't finding out what's in the box, but before you open the box. This is the thing I keep trying to talk about when I break down cards. Fight the FOMO. Fight the FOMO. That's why I talk about Ron Artest so much and Dr. J so much. When a card is genuinely very, very good, I want you guys to know enough about the game that when a new LeBron James comes out, you know, well, his release isn't as good as this Galaxy Opal card. So I'm going to use the Galaxy Opal card that makes my team better if I'm caring about being competitive. Now, if you just love LeBron and you need the LeBron card, fine. But even with that, if there's 100 overall LeBron, that's exactly the same as Dark Matter LeBron, except for a couple of meaningless badges. I want you guys to know that, because the reason LeBron has new card art, the reason they come up with these big names, 100 overall, invincible, just listen to these words, invincible. The reason they come up with this stuff is to get you excited, to get you that FOMO feeling, so that that feeling burns in your belly, and then that burn goes all the way down your hip and burns in your wallet, right? That's what they're trying to do. And that's part of the reason this channel even exists, because the more you guys know about the cards, the less effective this FOMO is going to be in getting you to pull packs when you don't really want to, right? So I think that is pretty much it for the article. I just thought this was a good opportunity to talk about some of the things it addresses. I don't think the article, quite frankly, I think looking at DBG's My Team documentaries are going to be more informative than this article. There were a couple of things that were interesting. Actually, there is one more thing I want to talk about. This is not Lootbox 3000, Jamie Madigan, same. It's FIFA. They're there to play virtual sports, not open loot boxes. So this part right here, I just want to highlight because the odds in 2K are so low that on Fridays, it's watching pack openings instead of watching gameplay. A pack opening, in my opinion, should not be hours and hours and hours long, right? Like, and I'm talking about, say a guy like Decentric, again, shout out to Decentric. When he's doing a pack opening, it takes forever. And it's not because he's Troy Dan, because he's literally spending $1 million. I think on average, Decentric maybe spends, what, like 900K VC? Maybe the same amount in MT, which is a high amount, but it's not like that shouldn't result in hours and hours and hours of pulling. The reason it takes so long is because the odds are so bad, right? And and then the animations take so long. So I think this is something that even beyond just the, it's not fair, it's gambling, the odds, blah, blah. I think even beyond that, something I want to focus on as a community of saying we don't like this. I don't want to be sitting here pulling packs all day. Even if I've earned 3 million MT and my favorite card is in there and the odds of pulling that card are pretty high and I just want to lock in the collection, I don't want to be doing that all day. I don't want to be sitting here watching these cards shake, watching diamond cards shake because I don't have in my collection. That sucks, you know. And there's a saying, I think it was Socrates who said it. He said you got to value the audience's butt, you know, because back in like those old amphitheaters or whatever, the seats were really hard. Like they're gonna sit there and listen to you. You got to value their time and their discomfort in sitting there, and you got to make what you're saying matter. Same thing with these pack openings. I could be playing other stuff. In fact, maybe I just want to play this game. Maybe I'm excited. Maybe I got a card. I'm excited to use them, but I got to sit here and watch these animations all day. That's not fun. You got to tighten that up. I know, and now and this is the thing. This is another area where we see the gameplay is suffering because they need those animations to get this dopamine released inside of you, to get you to turn you into a robot, to turn you into a pack opening bot, right? And so the game is worse because of how they're trying to manipulate you. Where even if you did just want to spend, even if you were rich, you just want to spend money and get the cards and go, you can't do it because it just takes too long because they need to manipulate other people. And there's no option in the game to speed that process up. It's totally separate from whether or not the process itself is fair. Because to make the process fair, all you got to do is lower the prices of everything, right? If instead of, $20 getting you whatever it is, 75K VC, if $20 gave you 3 million VC, okay, now it's fair, right? I still got to sit here all day. I don't want to do that. So that's a separate problem that I wanted to address in this article. Is this does feel like loot box 3000, as they said, TM, cool term. But and then they talk about kids and stuff like that. The one thing I'll say about the kids, like, I don't like using the whole it hurts kids as an example, and gambling is only wrong because it gets to children. Obviously, manipulating children to spend money is a problem. Theoretically, the parents would regulate their children's ability to spend money. I know I couldn't spend money if I didn't want to when I was a kid. But the thing is, you know what else hurts kids? If their dad is hooked on these loot boxes and spending too much money and hurting maybe their marriage or their ability to get certain stuff for the kids because because he has a gambling problem. Kids are people, but adults are people too. I don't think it's okay to gouge adults just because they're adults and theoretically they have free will. That's the excuse that they use to weaponize all of their psychology against you. You're an adult, you can do whatever you want. Okay, cool. Now I can be as evil as I need to be because I said those words. You're not a child, you're an adult, and so now it doesn't matter what I do. I don't think that's a healthy place from which to design a video game about basketball. All right, that's going to be it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section, how this article hit you. This does affect, obviously, college football and stuff like that and how that's all going. And so we'll see how this goes in 25. But I think it was a decent article for what it tried to be. But for our community, who is really well versed in the game, this wasn't for us. This was a surface article to let people who don't play sports game know that something's going on. And for that purpose, it was fine, but not really any, earth-shattering information for us over here. But it was a good opportunity to show you some of the stuff I've been saying here on this channel backed up in the New York Times, which is always nice. All right. Thanks, guys. Always appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe if you have not already. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.